So, after a loss to Carlton, the lid is now firmly affixed back on the premiership jar for Collingwood. Maybe I jumped the gun last week. Maybe I didn't. Who knows? But the truth is, in the space of 2 weeks, we've realised the big pros and the cons of playing this NAB challenge system that really has no benefit to anyone. I'm the Mighty T. Welcome again to another week of the Big Footy Magpies podcast. Joining me once again this week, Gone Critical. Obviously, couldn't stay away for too long. How are you, GC?
I'm not bad. I'm just feeling a little bit dirty trying to rationalise a loss to Carlton and say it doesn't mean anything. But apart from that, I'm pretty good.
It's a hard thing to do. And you know what I hate? I have Carlton supporting friends. Yeah, I don't know why either. And they actually like gloating about a preseason win. That's sad. And speaks to a greater disappointment in their lives. Also joining us tonight, our usual boundary riders, as I've decided to call them, Magpie Girl and Laurie Holden. Good evening, guys.
Hi, Mighty T. Hi, GC.
Hi, MG.
Good evening. Yes, the Carlton game certainly took me back to 2005. Plenty of Carlton fans will remember the Preseason Cup that year.
Yes, that was a lively competition. Certainly the highlight.
Their last great moment, wasn't it?
But anyway, off the Carlton bashing just for a moment, because we have to look at the fact that, you know, even though 80% of our players didn't get out of first gear, we did lose to the Blues. GC, does it mean anything? Did you take anything out of that game at all?
Oh, look, I think you take a little bit in terms of saying we didn't look great, but then you look through the stats and say, and of course, Swan and Penderbury hardly touched the ball relative to what they do. They had 6 of the top possession winners. Whatever we were doing, we weren't flat chat. And I think when you have so many people out and your star's not playing well, your game plan goes to the putt. So I think you can take very little out of it. No injuries is the best thing.
Considering that I thought our best to field was Nathan Brown with his, 13 touches, 5 tackles, and really he shouldn't be touching the ball anywhere near that much. It does speak volumes. I think I saw a little passage of play where Pendlebury was just jogging towards the ball and getting a nice little cheap hand pass out the side. And it was certainly the attitude of the players that didn't seem very switched on, which is a little bit of a shame because I think it was a good opportunity for a guy like Jordan De Goey to really press his claim for around one shot. Patrick Karnezis didn't do very much. Tim Broomhead was quiet. I think for me, that's the most disappointing element. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the surprise. Well, it's the thing that you're looking for is you're looking for a Kennedy or a Broomhead or a Karnezis or someone to sit up and say, look, watch me do this week. I'm a round one player. And I think a few of them have probably let a chance slip. Thought Adam Oxley was, for a guy who's been out all, missed the whole of last year, he's settling back pretty well. I don't think he's round one, but, he's got something to offer.
He proves to be a fascinating player in an interesting position. I guess the one thing that I always thought was a bit of a knock on him is he's not overly quick, but he seems to find space, which is really odd for a player of his type. He reminds me a little bit of Goldsack, but maybe a shade more talented by foot, but without the intensity.
He can kick the ball. Which makes him stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, it's not like we weren't missing a lot of players. We were, and we'll get to this week's game a little bit later on. But one of the big ins for us was Big Trav. And again, the big banana that he is didn't look particularly impressive or imposing against what is a fairly pedestrian Carlton backline. It's led to a few discussions on the forum about would we be a better football team with or without Cloak in that forward line? And I mean, for my money, I think he's done his job for the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's a bit early to say, maybe it's time to push him out.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, he didn't have a great year last year, but in 2013 he was All-Australian, nearly won the Coleman, was probably his best year. The other thing is, if I've ever watched through his career, if one player has always troubled him, it's Jamieson. Jamieson is a very good defender and matches very well on Cloak. And we didn't have delivery, so I think it was his first game. It was like Swan and Penderbury. Forget that game for Cloak.
No, couldn't agree with you more. I mean, at the end of the day, He is. He's absolutely vital. I've heard people talk about trading him at the end of season while he's young and has value. I'm thinking to myself, this is a man who probably has another 4 years left, 5 years left, maybe in the Collingwood jumper. He's got that. Guys like that don't get smaller, they don't get less competitive. So he's always going to be a worry for teams. I don't have a problem with Cloak at all. I'm probably his biggest defender. And I think everyone should be on board with him because he's still a damn good footballer for our club.
Yeah, the other thing that makes no sense if anyone talks about swapping him is he's got, after this year, he's got another 2 years left on his contract at big money. If we don't think he's that good, no one's going to buy that contract out. So we've got him. Forget about trading him. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. If he plays well, we don't want to do it. If he doesn't play well, no one's going to take his contract out.
Well, the interesting thing now about Cloak, I think, more becomes about his supporting cast. His big partner in crime 2 years ago, Ben Reid, has been settled into the back line. Varying opinions on that. I think it's a good move. But, we're now looking at a forward line combination that would look at Cloak plus perhaps Jesse White, perhaps a resting ruckman. Karnezis has got a lot of support. And starting to firm up his young Corey Galt after his elevation from the rookie list. What are your thoughts on the forward dynamic, and how happy are you for young Corey?
Oh, I must say I've been surprised. I mean, I watched him a bit in the VFL last year, and he went from when he'd come back from, he did his collarbone, you thought, well, that's almost his career done. Then he played well late in the year in the VFL, got that game, and then this year I think he's been a bit of a revelation, really. I mean, that mark he clunked against Hawthorn, his leading against Carlton was quite good. So he's got something to offer. And I think he and Jesse White are in. But I think if Cloak has one of those two can step up a bit, and then Elliott and Fasolo, that's an aerial presence that is pretty daunting in a lot of ways. And I think Cloak can be helped just by that.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, that it really does become more about, again, the supporting cast and the parts more than the individual. I mean, I've had just a bit of a quick notation now. You could expect 30 goals from someone like Elliott. That's something that we should be an expectation now for him, given 22 games as a minimum as a starting point. Cloak probably about 50. Okay, that's probably where his average would be across the last 5 years, if not a little bit higher. But you say at least 50. For Solo, a full season up forward, again, I'd say about 30 goals. Okay, so that's 60 goals from two guys who aren't your primary forwards and 50 from your tall. It's 110 goals between the three of them, which is already good service. You add in someone like then a Galt, who, what can we expect to average from Corey Galt? A goal a game, perhaps?
More than a goal. 25?
Yeah, and I've got you've read my mind. I've got 25 here. So if the kid ends up playing 20 games for the season, 25 games would seem like a pretty good return for that. And you put in the other guys, the Whites, and look, the thing that made us so successful in 2010, we've got to look past it obviously, was the fact that we had a lot of midfield goal scorers, and that's the one thing we've been missing. It's a variety of goal scorers that have flooded in through the middle that chip in 1-2 goals a game. Okay, Swan up to 2 years ago, I think, had 39 goals, which is ridiculous for a man who with his sorts of midfield minutes. Okay, but if you could get another 25 to 30 out of Swan, you've now got a very potent midfield / forward brigade. So I completely agree that our forward line will be the sum of its parts, not on Cloak the individual.
That's what we need. We need the whole group contributing. Swan and Cloak can be the main man still, but not the only man.
The return of Fazzola has made a big difference already. Just suddenly there's another target, and he's a really good mark. And have we seen them, Elliott and Fazzola, play in the same team? Did they play together the first time?
They played a little, but not for Solo's really good year were 2011-12, and Elliott came really established 2013-14 when Fasolo was injured. So to have them both lining up, if they both play at their level, then absolutely what we've got is two 30-a-year guys who are not talls.
And both really exciting marks. And
trouble. And then if you've got Cloak and you've got White and you've got the resting ruckman down there, then number 4 and number 5 in the air have to go up against guys who are very strong in the air. They'll get guys against them that are really not strong in the air. I think they can be, Luke Bruce is like that because he's strong in the air, can score goals, and he's got the benefit of having a whole lot of guys around him that take pressure off him. I think that's what we need. We need a whole lot of guys working together.
So from the forward line, switching gears into defensive prospects, we've talked about the elevation of Corey Gold in replacement for the injured Brent McCaffer. But one person who won't be on the long-term injury list, or at least placed back there for any indefinite period of time, Matt Scharenberg. Some good news on that front, GC.
Absolutely. Very encouraging that from Barmy's report today to say that they clearly stated he's tracking well ahead of average and, just really needs a block of about 4 weeks of conditioning, they thought. So he sounds like he'll be playing VFL early in the season, which is ahead of schedule, and it puts him on target now to hopefully debut this year.
Does that make a few of our resident doctors on the big footy board have to eat a bit of a humble pie about, he won't be the same and injury prone and not going to debut in 2015, wasted pick, rah, rah, rah. I mean, I've heard it all. I've read it all probably in the last 5 weeks, if not longer, since his injury. This certainly puts paid to that, doesn't it?
I'll probably put my hand up and be one of the ones that might have said it, but I don't think. Look, I think what it does say is, I think this kid needs time. I think we just don't want to get too much expectation, but he's had the best part of 2 years out by the time he's back, but now he's in a position to do something this year. And with these ACL injuries, if they're clean injuries and they recover well and don't get setbacks, then they're back early. And I think I've always sort of thought, well, let's take let's take the conservative view and let's think if he's not back all year, well, that's okay. But if he's back, fantastic.
Yeah, he'll certainly. I've said it in one of the threads. Who projects to be very Goddard-like. So start off the halfback, and I think eventually once his frame develops, he'll move into the midfield. But he's just gonna look. It's hard. You got to say for the lad, it's hard being the highest draft pick we've had since a guy called Pendlebury. Trying to there's an expectation almost that certainly a lot of casual supporters or people that don't watch a lot of junior football have, that these high draft picks will come in and be megastars. So for him to miss this much footy, there is and still have that expectation. Hopefully it doesn't weigh on him too much. But I think you're right. We just have to be patient, let the kid develop at his own pace, and get a feel for the game before we start worrying about. Look, he may debut by mid-season. Yeah. There's every possibility, depending on how we're playing and how he plays. There's every chance that we'll see him play senior footy this year, and that's very exciting.
But I don't think, at the same time, I don't think we should worry if he takes a reasonable time to readjust and get up to speed. I think I'd hate to think people say, well, he's no good because he hasn't shone immediately. He's missed a lot of footy. Give him time, but if he's as good as what we all think he can be, he'll come good.
And if it takes him to the age of 20 in his third season to debut, so be it. At the end of the day, the talent isn't going to leave. So we'll in the long run, I'm sure we will find out what kind of a player Matt Scharenberg is, and we'll go from there. Switching gears to this weekend, the full dress rehearsal against the Western Bulldogs. It's going to be interesting because I'm wondering what sort of squad we're going to put out there. I can openly say I'm pissed beyond belief that Jordan De Goey has been neglected out of this side. It is astounding to me that a kid after one very good game, one okay, not a great game, but hey, you've got about 20 friends out there, has now been left out of the side. What are your thoughts on the weekend and the selected teams?
Well, if we go on just to Goey, that game against Hawthorn, he screamed class and a kid that was ready to straight away. That's what he looked like to me. I'm not going to rule out the idea that they may have even said to him look, we think you've done enough now. Go back to the VFL, have a week off and take the pressure off, and we're going to select you, maybe be the sub. But even if he isn't, he has to be someone who's not going to be far away. So I don't think it matters greatly if he doesn't play the first week or the first 5 weeks. I think he's shown us that he's going to play and play pretty soon, and he's going to be very exciting. So him being out doesn't worry me that much, although I've already love him. I think this week's going to be a dress rehearsal. So I'm really interested to see who of the 27 they've named. They've got to leave another 3 out because that's going to leave 24, and I think the 24 that are left is the round 1 team -2. You know, you've just got to drop 2 more out. So really interesting to see who makes the cut this week.
It's interesting because obviously Grundy had a little bit of a scare and he's been named. Witts hasn't been named, nor has Ben Reid. So they must have an element of confidence about Grundy being fit enough to go up. The ins are Adams, Elliott, Frost, Sidebottom and White. Only the 3 out so far, and Cox to go in Dwyer. I think we'd be looking at someone like Adam Oxley perhaps missing, and maybe a Patrick Karnezis.
And Ramsey's got they've done okay, but I think they might say, well, you're maybe go back for a week.
So is that essentially going to be our strongest side minus Ben Reid and potentially Jared Witts?
I think so, yeah. The other one I'm interested in is in Tim Broomhead because he hasn't done that much this pre-season after sort of showing us a lot at the end of last year. So I think he really needs a big week this week. He needs to, push himself back into the picture.
Well, I reckon the best of the acquisitions so far, I mean, Greenwood's been solid as he always was going to be, but Crisp has been quite good. And for me, he's firming as a first-round debutant. I can't see why he wouldn't be included in a first-round team at the moment.
Yep, I think he's another one. Absolutely, he's another one. That's why this week's really interesting because it's guys like Crisp, it's Broomhead, it's Kennedy. There's a couple of places, even Thomas. If you don't play well this week, you're going to miss out round 1. So I think there's going to be a few guys that will be going hell for leather against the Doggies. I think the big microscope this week will fall on someone like Taylor Adams and probably Josh Thomas, but Taylor Adams specifically. The Dogs have been built over the last year and a bit as a hardball contested winning team. Taylor Adams is a hardball winning player. There'll be no Liberatore for the Dogs, but there will be Matthew Boyd. But there's an opportunity for him now to say, if this is a full dress rehearsal, he's got to go full bore and say, I am everything that the club wanted me to be when they picked me up. And this is Taylor Adams has to start making. It starts this weekend, making a statement for himself to be in that side and to be a key player in our midfield. Yeah, I agree. Although I'm a little bit of the view that if you get rested in week 2, it's almost because they say, well, you've done enough. I think he's around 1 certainty, Adams. Oh, absolutely. But you're right. He's the next. After our established midfield guys, he's the next one that we really want to step up and make a difference because he's the next one that's going to make our midfield come back to being a very good midfield. So I'm going to rattle off a couple of names at you now. I want you to tell me at this point in time whether you think they're round 1 certainties. All right, we'll go with Jack Crisp to start with. Still has to have a good game this week. If he does, he's in. Okay. What about Jackson Ramsey? Don't think so. I don't think he'll get a game this week, so I think he'll be VFL. Jared Blair. Certainty. He showed on Saturday. He kicked a couple of goals. He got posies. He may not be there all year, and if they pass him, fantastic. But they haven't. The young blokes haven't passed him yet, so they've got to get past him to kick him out. Look, I agree. On the weekend, he did what he has to do for a man in his position. That's the least that we can expect. The club can expect of him: pressure, target, scoring goals. I don't know how much better Jared Blair can get as a footballer, but as you say, until they go past the likes of him, of Tuvey, of Goldsack, these guys are going to be in the squad. I want to see them go past them, not to be said, I think potentially you're better, so we'll give you games so to see whether you are. I want them to knock down the door and say, I'm the better bloke here, and you have to now pick me on that basis.
Yeah, again, that 2010 model where, Blairy busted down the door and someone like Lockyer missed out on that grand final because of how good Blair was.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see from the recruits as well. No, I'm certainly on the same page there. What in particular would you be looking out for on the weekend?
Yeah, we're going to have Fasolo, Cloak, White, Galt, Elliott, maybe Karnisis. We have all those guys that we can see forming our forward line out there, and it's the first time I think that group will have played together to any real degree. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to mesh together, and who's really going to take hold of the forward line.
Okay. And look, I mean, this also lends to people. There's an argument going around that people think that Cloak should be a little bit more explorative in his leads, head outside 50. This might be the time when Buckley could almost test that and have Cloak lead back up to the wings and really start getting on his bike, working defenders over and clearing some space in the forward line for a couple of the tall targets.
Yeah, absolutely. And even and Elliott and Fasolo, who are good on the lead, if Cloak clears a path, and if we don't go to him, then suddenly, because you saw against Carlton, one thing we saw was Fasolo hit a couple of leads really hard and give these guys space, and that's what we need. We need Cloak moving. Yes, some of the ball goes to him, but when it doesn't, there's space behind him that these guys are going to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's going to be interesting. This whole little NAB series, whilst it hasn't been, I don't think, beneficial overall, I think it's been enlightening to see a few different changes. And it certainly makes the prospect of the incoming season very, very tantalising. But I guess it'll all unfold this Saturday evening. I'm going to wrap up for tonight because we've done a good show. We've had a few interruptions, but we've had a good show. I want to thank everyone for being a part of it again. Magpie Girl and Laurie Holden for your consistent efforts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And GC, thanks again for being part of the show.
Oh, thank you. Very enjoyable.
We also want to send a special shout out to Reykjavik. I hope you're listening in. I hope you've been reading all the comments on the Big Footy board. Our thoughts are with you, mate. So take care. Feel better soon. We're certainly willing and happy to have you on whenever you are feeling up to it. We'll be back next week for our big season launch kickoff podcast. But for now, this is the Mighty T signing out.